Hi guys, my name is Sachin Mishra and welcome back to the second part of Basics of Adobe XD training. Now that you have a sense of how the XD interface works, let's start to dig into some specific design features. For this part, let's create an artboard. So to navigate to that artboard, you can go to the Layers panel, select the artboard and once again hit Command or Ctrl 3 to zoom in so I can see that artboard nice and full here on my screen. Let's break down the individual tools a bit more. Starting from the upper left hand corner, you will notice I have below the pointer tool or the select tool, I have a rectangle tool. Hovering over it lets me know that I can use the keyboard shortcut with the letter R to access it. So stay with that select tool and come here on the canvas. And I will just go ahead and type R on the keyboard. Depending on how good your eyesight is, you can see that just to the lower corner of the crosshairs, there's a very little square that lets me know that I am currently on that rectangle tool. From here I can just come in and press and drag a rectangle shape. When I release on that shape, you will notice I have a handles that can I use to resize. So even though my tool is still a rectangle tool, as I hold close to the object, there are some selection handles here. I can press and drag the width of the rectangle. Notice I have a hover on that object as well. I get the ability to rotate the object if I want. Here on the right hand side in the properties inspector, as I am doing this, the values in the properties inspector changing. So as I rotate, I can see which value I am in. Let's say I drop it around 21 degrees in that rotation. If I want to make absolute or exacting changes with the object still selected, I can always come directly to the properties inspector and undo that rotation. Let's say by double clicking on the rotation value, typing 0 and then enter, so that it goes back to being perfectly straight. Notice on the object, in addition to those selection handles, I have an inner circle that's kind of a double circle. If I come to any of those control points, it switches to a selection, which is important. And then as I press and drag, notice that what it's doing is rounding out the corner of this shape and it's applying to all four corners. Back here in the properties inspector towards the bottom, you can see that I have the rounded corner feature there. It's about to set to 50. So I'm currently at a value of 50 for each of the corners. If I hold down the Alt key and come back to a corner, I can press and drag just one corner at a time. So if I decided I wanted only rounded corners on two sides, holding the Alt key on the design canvas allows me to make that change. Notice that the properties inspector adjusted to the fact that I have unique values for my corners and allowed me to come in and define for all four corners here. I can toggle between to them all being the same here in the properties inspector by switching back or go to that unique value and then set those values once again. Here in the layers panel, notice that I have an automatically generated number. I have been working on this file for a while, so I have a rectangle with a random number. So that rectangle is a unique value in the properties inspector or in the layers panel. But I have an icon indicating that it is a shape and that shape is the rectangle. Now with the object still selected, I can continue to customize the shape by setting up few attributes. So I'll come here in the properties inspector and under fill, I'm just going to click on that fill color. I will go ahead and select this lighter color blue. It will apply to that object. Again, it's important that the object be selected on the canvas. In the border area, I can come in and select a border color. Let's go with maybe a darker shade of blue. Under size, I will give it a much thicker border. So let's say a border of 5. I want to switch back to my selector. So I will tap B on the keyboard and that allows me to come in and just select the object and move it around. Now what we have done is pretty much applicable to all the other shapes as we proceed. If I want to go to the next tool, the ellipse tool, I can hover over it and see that the ellipse tool uses the letter E. So as a work, I can type the letter E on the keyboard and draw myself an ellipse. Notice that it can be disproportionate. If I hold the shift key, it's going to keep it proportionate and release. Another trick is if I want to draw from the center of a shape, I can hold the Alt key and the Shift key so it will draw from the center and keep it proportional at the same time. So I have these two lovely ellipses. Again in the layer panel, notice that the first icon shows a rectangle, second to show the ellipse with a unique value or number for each object. One nice thing that about XD is you can't create fractional pixels, which is where you are designing for the web, which might have much lower resolution than your designer. And if you leave it up to the computer to guess how to lower the resolution, you can end up with a fuzzy pixel. XD won't allow you to do that when you are drawing individual objects. So notice here in the properties inspector, I get whole values. Only time I get a fractional pixel is if I were to group a number of objects together and then scale that group. An object within the group may end up as a fractional pixel, but that's to be expected when you are designing for a group at a time. One nice feature in XD is you can easily copy and paste attributes from one object to another. So let's assume for a moment I think that this first rectangle looks amazing here on the left and I want to apply it to my two ellipses object here on the bottom. I will click to select the first object and by right clicking on the object directly on the canvas. So with the object selected on the canvas, I am going to bring up the right menu and select copy. Next I will come to two ellipses objects, so I am going to hold down the shift key to shift plus select the two objects at the same time. And with them selected, once again I will bring up the right menu and instead of selecting paste, which would paste the entire rectangle, I am going to select paste appearance. What this will do is capture any of the attributes that I have defined. So not the actual shape as you can see, but any design attributes I have defined and paste that onto these two other objects. So I'll click paste appearance and very quickly I have applied anything I have done from the first to the second and third object. Let's go ahead and move on to the next tool, which is the polygon tool. I can see it here in the tools panel. Rolling over, it's letting me know that it's using the letter Y to switch to that tool. So I will type Y on the keyboard and I'm just going to press and drag. Before I release, I want to mention a few things. Notice that the crosshair has a cute little triangle there below it that lets me know what tool I am on. As I look here in the properties inspector, I can press and drag to resize the object and the values change. One other thing that's interesting is in the appearance area, I can see that I have that polygon shape and that three sides to it. If I don't release the mouse, if I keep it selected and come to the keyboard and use the up arrow key, I can come in and add additional sides to my polygon. When I now release on it, I have a number of interesting controls. The first allow me to come in and press and drag rounded corners. So similar to what we did with the other shapes. The second control that's actually on the line for the polygon shape. If I press and drag that, this is going to define the radius or the distance between the center of my object and these outer edges. So this is how I can end up with a star as I'm working by just pressing and dragging to change that radius, distance between the top and the middle of the shape. I will go ahead and make this a little fancier by right clicking on the object and I will paste appearance once again because I still had that on the clipboard earlier on. It's something that was remembered will apply. There's one very interesting thing that I have to show you, and that's when you working with a polygon. If you come over to the number of sides value here in the properties inspector, I'm going to select it and instead of 5, I'm going to do less than 3 or so famous heart emoji indicator. And when I hit enter on the keyboard, it actually converts it to a heart. Isn't it interesting? Okay guys, well let's assume I'm good with these shapes as a whole, but I want to now take some of them further to do some additional icon customization. You can convert any shape to a path but you need to keep in mind that it's a one-way trip. So once you convert a shape to a path, you can't convert it back to a shape unless you hit undo right away. So let me show you what I mean. I have got this ellipse and I like to customize it further. When I double click on it, it basically takes me inside that shape and allows me to select the path. Notice here in the layers panel, it is letting me know I have converted it from a shape to a path, and the icon there shows that it's a shape that I can interact with as I do by using the pen tool. From here I can come in and select one of the points on the path and just press it off to the one on the side. If I double click, it will convert that point to not a rounded point but an angle point. So I can continue to play around and customize my design. The pen tool in Adobe XD combines some really powerful features while keeping the tool really simple and elegant. The implementation in XD, I think it's a beautiful combination of elegance and power. So to get to the pen tool, I will come here to the tool panel. I can click on it or type P on the keyboard. So I will type P and from there I can draw points in my path. Notice that as I have press and drag, I get handles for a Bezier curve versus if I click and release, I can convert to straight line as I work. So I can just continue making a pretty silly shape here. As I get close to the initial point, I can close up the path by joining these two together. I can always come back to any of the points that I have defined and refine anything I have done by moving the point or changing the handles on the left and right of that. If I want to convert a Bezier a rounded point to a square point, I can do so by just double clicking, which is going to change that. So to make that rounded, will square that back out again as an actual corner. If I hit escape, it will allow me to select the entire shape, and by grabbing one of the handles on the edge, I can resize that object. Now as usual, I can copy and paste my appearance, but it's extra tricky that I want to teach you a little bit of how this is taught. So if I come back to my heart and say, oh, I really copy this attribute, when I come in to select the object, it's selected, but when I right click to paste my appearance, I need to make sure my pointer is right there on the line, so that when I right click, it's selecting that path to paste appearance. If instead I just click on the middle of the object, the way you would think you might, I don't see paste appearance. So once again I will come on, select that and make sure I am on the path when I right click and select paste appearance. So we are at the end of the second part of this Adobe XD Basics series. We will continue in the next video with more tools. Hope you like this video. If you want to subscribe, that would be awesome. And if you want to see some other Adobe XD tips, mention it in comments below. I will see you soon. Thank you.